For example, in this latest reel, the whole caption is "goodness in a glass right around the corner, ... And the one where the wine is going into the glass on the beach, it's, "Oh, how we love seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Rosé-colored glasses, perhaps even better. Our new vintage of as ever beloved rosé is available next week. Stay tuned." And I do need to mention that while Miss Alex during this whole podcast is fawning over the fact that she dated Brad Pitt and fawning over the fact that Gwyneth dated Ben and talking about who's the best kisser and who's the best in bed and all this garbage, not once, not one time did Gwyneth or Alex, the host, bring up Gwyneth's current husband. How do you think that makes Gwyneth's husband feel? I didn't hear Gwyneth talk about her current husband in any kind of way. She didn't even talk about him, and neither did Alex, which makes me really believe that all these people care about is raunch and surface crap when it comes to sex and relationships. Let's drink out of our German water bottle, okay? Yeah. That's just what you want to say when you take a nice, tasty, refreshing drink. Yeah. Okay. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jennifer. I am so happy to have you here today. Buckle up, Buttercup. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of really weird and raunchy stuff going on in celebrity culture right now. Also a few cute things that we'll touch on. But I want to just focus on the weirdest and the raunchiest stuff at the top of this video. So let's get going. The first thing I want to talk about is Gwyneth Paltrow going on a podcast called Call Her Daddy. Now, if you are like me, you come across learning about a podcast like Call Me Daddy. What the heck is this thing called? When you learn about a podcast like this, it really does make your eyeballs roll in the back of your head so much that you're going to give yourself a headache. Now, Call Her Daddy is a podcast hosted by a 30-year-old woman named Alex Cooper. First signed a super lucrative deal with Spotify a couple years ago. And lately, I want to say in this past year or so, maybe longer, I don't know, I'm really out of the loop, but whatevs, she signed a $100 million podcast deal with Sirius FM. So basically this podcast of hers is the second most popular podcast on, I believe, Spotify and Sirius, just trailing behind Joe Rogan. So it's Joe Rogan and it's this gal. And it's a podcast for women about relationships and anything and everything, and even just things you would really not care to know about sex. She talks about sex ad nauseum on her podcast. She's known for it. And she gets very, very gross, very, very graphic. It's tailored to Gen Zs and millennials, I guess. But that's kind of her trademark. That's what she's known for. She apparently started this podcast way back in 2018 with a partner. And I want to say her name is Sophia. But she fell out with this gal. It was like a really high profile falling out. She went and negotiated her own stuff with Spotify, eventually moving on to Sirius, left that gal in the dust. And that gal now has her own podcast, and apparently she's really hating on Alex Cooper. And the first episode she ever came out with her own podcast was basically talking all this trash about Alex.
Money. It was never about the deal points. It was never about the IP. It was about who you are as a human being. You wanted the spotlight. This isn't even the first time you tried to get me kicked off the show, and you know what I'm talking about. You lied relentlessly for 14 months about a side deal you did behind my back with Barstool to me and others, including our own shared attorney. This is exactly the type of behavior that has cost you your best friends one after the other over the years. I add more value through my creativity than all of your editing hours combined. My value is more than 50%. Your skills are menial, mine are intangible. To say you do more than me is a fucking joke. Would be laughable if I didn't find it so pathetic. I don't care about the money. I care about the lying, and that's where you and I differ.
And then now Alex has her own deal with Sirius. She's got her own podcast network where she's signing deals with podcasters to work under her and her production company. And she also signed a gal named Alex, who's about 6 years her junior, who also had a podcast. And it's really funny because they kind of look like doppelgangers of each other. They're both named Alex. They're both kind of in your face with their boobies, and they're really outspoken, and they're this and they're that. Those two Alexes had a falling out. So Miss Alex Cooper seems to be a little bit dicey, a little bit provocative. It doesn't really seem to me like she likes to play nice in the sandbox. It seems like she doesn't really have a lot of good business relationships. She's already had 2 major falling outs with 2 people, 2 women. And it's really funny because it really seems to me like so many of these young women today, they claim to be such proponents of women, such advocates for women. They're all feminists. They love women, yet they can't really seem to get along with a lot of women. They really have a lot of falling outs. There's a lot of cattiness. It's just kind of gross. That's what I was learning, finding out about this woman. And then finding out about her podcast. So over the last, 6, 7 months or so, I first really found out about her when Kamala Harris went on her podcast during the 2024 presidential election cycle. And I guess it was kind of like this huge thing because Alex's show, Call Her Daddy, is known for being provocative. It's known for being raunchy. It's known for being all about sex and just every gross thing about sex you can imagine. So to have Kamala go on it, it was supposedly like this big coup for Kamala, and everyone was just like praising it, like how cool it was that Kamala went on it. Whereas a lot of people who really think that what this young woman's all about is super raunchy, they were kind of like, that's gross. Why would she want to go on that in the first place? So that's kind of the first rumblings I ever heard about this woman. Then I heard about her interviewing Charlize Theron about a month or so ago. And of course, in my personal opinion, someone like Charlize Theron is one of those really, really mean-hearted, toxic feminists that just hate men, period. But yet she's adopting young boys and no doubt planting all of her gross seeds of man hatred in their little young, impressionable minds. But anyway, I digress. So Gwyneth Paltrow recently went on this podcast, and I'm going to assume that she's probably going on this podcast because there is a biography of Gwyneth coming out. I have it pulled up here on my phone. It's a biography that just came out this past July 29th, 2025, and it's called Gwyneth, the biography. And by all accounts, things I've read and heard about in the media, it's kind of a boring book. Apparently, more than half of the book centers upon how she founded her company Goop. That's not necessarily boring, but I did hear that it was just boring to read. Like, it just wasn't a page turner. And also, there's a lot of chatter in that book about Gwyneth's love life. And if you don't know, Gwyneth famously dated Brad Pitt back in the day. She famously dated Ben Affleck back in the day. She married the lead singer of Coldplay, Chris Martin. I want to say back in 2004, 2005, something like that. They have 2 children, Apple and Moses. Now let's talk about those names. But anyway, and she divorced him, and now she is married to a guy, I have it written down here. His name is Brad Falchuk, and he's a famous writer, director, producer. His most famous work, I guess, to date is the television show Glee. So she's been married twice, divorced once, currently married, and she's got some famous exes, right? 3 of them to be exact. And she goes on this Call Her Daddy podcast. And all I have to say, this is the first time I ever sat down and watched an episode from start to finish. And I have to say, it's basically, the episode I saw wasn't too raunchy with Gwyneth. I think that little Miss Alex Cooper was probably holding back a bit because Gwyneth is about, 25, almost 25 years older than this woman is. So maybe Alex is going to hold back a little bit, maybe just because Gwyneth is so famous, Academy Award winner, maybe out of respect. But what this interview really is, though, it seems to me, and I listen to these young women in their 20s and their 30s talk today, and the way that they approach interviews, the way that they talk to people, it's all very middle school. This entire podcast was basically Alex Cooper's fascination with the fact that Gwyneth dated Brad Pitt and was engaged to him. She did call off this engagement, but she's so fangirling about the fact that Gwyneth dated Brad, and it's almost to the point of being crazy embarrassing. Like you could tell Gwyneth was kind of like playing along with the joke, but after a while she's like, yeah, that's right. It's like, we all know that she dated Brad Pitt. Great. We talk about something else, but it's all about Brad. And then she starts talking about Ben and she starts talking about Chris. But the questions here are so asinine and so crazy. So she talks about Gwyneth, how she met Brad when she was 22. It was love at first sight. And, she's telling about their story and all this kind of stuff. And when Alex asks her questions, she immediately goes to what I was telling you before, these middle school type questions or high schoolish type questions, like the type of questions you would be asking if you were 16, 17, 18 years old. But this woman's 30 and she seemed really, really big on the comparison game. And that was what was really uncomfortable for me to watch, and I'm sure for Gwyneth to actually sit there and try to answer these inane questions. She was really big into comparing all three famous men that Gwyneth was with. So she's constantly talking about Brad and Ben and Chris Martin, but in this comparative way where she's saying, for example, who had better style? Who was more romantic? Who had a better sense of humor? Who was a better kisser? Who was better in bed? And how the hell is Gwyneth supposed to answer a question like this and not come across as a total a-hole? Like, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to even answer those questions? And mind you, she was trying to be as diplomatic as she could, but I was thinking to myself, like, seriously, how uncomfortable do you want to make your guest? Asking them of these three men that you've been with, who was better in bed? Who was more romantic? Who did you fight with more? Who made you laugh? And, oh, good Lord, help us. And then, she's talking about Gwyneth here. She's talking about her divorce from Chris Martin. And she's saying the thing that most feminists who have been through divorce talk about. You have to really work on yourself. And oftentimes when you come into these relationships, be it, relationships or marriages, you have to really know yourself. You have to really love yourself and trust yourself. And if you can't, then that relationship is probably doomed anyway, and you shouldn't be with that person. And a lot of these new age feminist people like Gwyneth, like Alex, they all like to frame it as if to say that if you're not 100% down and attuned with yourself, that you really shouldn't be in relationships, and these relationships are, doomed to fail anyway. That's always their shtick. They always talk like the most important relationship you have is with yourself. That's another big adage and mantra that they like to throw out there. That is just the crap that women have been fed since pretty much the sexual revolution of the late 1960s. Because think about it, we're all fallible, we are all broken people. There is no way that you're going to be a 100% satisfied with your life, because that's just not the human condition. Human beings are frail emotionally. Well, we're frail physically, obviously, because we die, but we're also very frail emotionally. We don't think clearly a lot of the time. We're selfish, we're egotistic. So to go into your life thinking that unless you are 100% simpatico with yourself and you just are so self-actualized and wonderful, only then can you get a relationship. That's just a bunch of hogwash nonsense. Everyone is broken. Everyone has their thing. But the real thing about it, the right way, the adult way to go about it is to know about your human frailties, to know that you're a broken person, but to want to be better, every single day of your life that you're in a relationship with somebody else, and to give your best to that other person. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, both should be operating on that level. That yes, we're both flawed, but we come together for the betterment and the love and respect and just support of the other person. And that's really what makes a marriage work. That's a more healthier way to look at relationships. So that's like one of the main things that I always get when I watch these so-called feminists and new agers, these woo-woo, people like Gwyneth and this Alex, how they always are talking about self-actualization and self-love, and how, it's really courageous to want to say that you want a divorce and that you're going to break up a family. Well, it doesn't really matter as long as you're true to yourself and you're courageous. And even Gwyneth herself is talking about in that video that it's hard on children. They suffered. It always seems to me that even though they're saying that they're not presenting selfishness and choosing divorce and things like that as ideal, that they're not, they really are. They really do celebrate that type of stuff. And they talk about and celebrate relationships in the most simplistic animalistic, gross ways that you ever want to. Rather than talk about how to relate to another human being in a kind and compassionate way, how to relate to your spouse in a kind and compassionate and respectful way day in and day out, because it is a struggle, to really strive to be the best version of yourself in a relationship and give of yourself that way in a relationship. But these types of people don't want to talk about relationships and marriage like that. They just want to talk about how, well, do what's best for you, and it's all about you, and also let's just appeal to our baser instincts. Let's just talk about the raunchy aspects of relationships. Let's talk about everything that should be private and blessed and pure and chaste with your spouse behind closed doors. No, forget that. Let's bring it all out into the open, and let's talk about positions. This woman apparently is famous for talking all the live long day about how she gives BJs, what she's done with her boyfriends in the past, things that she's done, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, can we just leave some of that behind closed doors and be as raunchy as you want, do whatever the heck you want to do, but do I have to hear about your perfected BJ technique? No thanks, I'm good. So there's a reason why I don't listen to or prescribe to any of this type of garbage, and this is why, because when you watch stuff like this, again, we're all fallen, we've all made mistakes in our lives, but I can't help but think that these people are so lost. They are so unbelievably lost. And another thing about this particular podcast interview that I'll touch on before we move on is Gwyneth is talking about how when she got divorced, her kids were, or I believe her daughter Apple was around 11, 12 years old, and she was back in California. And she's talking about how in school, Apple, her daughter, had sex ed at school and came home with her best friend in tow to Gwyneth, apparently just freaked the hell out on everything that they learned about their bodies, about intimacy, about sex, everything that they had learned in school, whatever creepo curriculum that they were learning in school, and they bring it home to Gwyneth, and they're apparently just pale, stricken, so shook up as if to be, I cannot believe, is this really what people do? And Gwyneth is telling you, oh, they told them everything, everything about everything that you wanted to know about sex. They taught them, and they just and apparently the 11-year-old Apple and her best friend are freaking traumatized. And well, yeah, they're freaking traumatized because they're still innocent little babies, probably learning about all the type of crap that Alex talks about on this podcast that she calls Call Her Daddy. And she even makes a joke about it, Alex, to Gwyneth, saying, oh yeah, haha, well, that was probably a little bit inappropriate, but in a few years, you almost want to tell Apple, well, whatever you want to find out, just listen to my podcast, ha ha ha. And then Gwyneth is like, ha ha, yeah, I'm so grateful that you talk about it on your podcast. You do the hard work for me. I don't even have to. No wonder our culture is in just such disarray and in the freaking dumpster, because people are learning about their bodies and intimacy, things that they should be learning from their parents in a loving, close, private conversation. They're learning about it in school. And, I had that whole talk in my school when I was in 6th grade, but I don't remember learning every type of position under the sun and every technique under the sun and all that garbage, which is apparently what Gwyneth's daughter learned when she was 11 or 12 or however old she was. This is just the reason why those children were traumatized coming to Gwyneth is because they had no business learning about that type of stuff at that age. And when I say they had no business learning about that type of stuff, I mean to the extent that they are. Obviously, as a young woman, you're going to learn about that stuff, but it should be in a private conversation with your parents, with your mom if you're a girl, and then if you're a boy, with your dad. Of course the boy can ask the mom questions and vice versa, but again, this is a parental conversation. This is something that should be in love and support and in privacy, because kids feel awkward. Kids feel embarrassed about this kind of stuff. Who wants to go to a school with a room full of 11 and 12-year-olds and learn about positions and BJs and come home shocked and embarrassed and talking about it with your mom saying, is this true? Is this really what people do? They're traumatized. They're freaking traumatized. And I do need to mention that while Miss Alex during this whole podcast is fawning over the fact that she dated Brad Pitt and fawning over the fact that Gwyneth dated Ben and talking about who's the best kisser and who's the best in bed and all this garbage, not once, not one time did Gwyneth or Alex, the host, bring up Gwyneth's current husband. How do you think that makes Gwyneth's current husband feel? I didn't hear Gwyneth talk about her current husband in any kind of way. So I can't even sit here and say I didn't like how she spoke about him because she didn't even talk about him. She didn't even talk about him, and neither did Alex, which makes me really believe that all these people care about is raunch and surface crap when it comes to sex and relationships. They don't want to talk about the beauty, the covenant supposed to be with a husband and a wife, you know, a glorious sacrament where a husband and a wife give of themselves completely, totally, and fully in a way to be open to and to celebrate life in a family. No. No one talks about that anymore. If you talk about it like that, you're just a prude. You're just a crazy religious freak, right? It's so crazy to me. They only care about sex and relationships when it's creepy, crazy, surface level debauchery. So save yourself the time. I know probably most of the people that watch my channel wouldn't even waste their time. And that's why I love you all, because you guys are very, very on point. You guys are very smart. You don't have time for that garbage. That's why I'm here to tell you what's going on and to tell you, you are right to stay away from all of this. So it's really, really sad because when I watch women in the culture like Alex Cooper have so much money, have so much influence, have a platform to reduce sex and relationships to the most shallow, raunchy thing that you can ever want to talk about. It's gross. How many times can I say gross? I'll say it again. It's just gross. Moving on. Okay, so what else do I have for you? Well, today is Meghan's birthday. I don't know how old this woman is. Is she 44 today or is she 45? I have no idea. Hey guys, editing Jennifer here. So I'm on German time. I go to bed and I didn't know that she posted on her birthday. She didn't post anything on her Meghan Instagram account, but she did post a birthday message to herself on her As Ever official. And we all know it's posted to herself because she's the one that runs it, okay? She can't afford a staff. So this is what we have. Happy birthday to you, Megsy. What we're going to talk about is the fact that she is dropping her latest vintage, the latest vintage of her rosé. And I have her Instagram pulled up here, you guys, and I have to tell you, do you remember when we were talking about the Emma Grede podcast and how she made a very pointed effort to tell the host of Aspire, Emma Grede, that she only uses her Meghan account for her personal things like her family, herself, and As Ever is just business. As Ever is As Ever. That's biz. But Meghan is her personal account that she chooses to share with us. Well, yet again, here she is cross-posting, talking about her latest drop. And she speaks about her wine as if it's a vintage. And we all know that the woman's white labeling this stuff. So I don't know why she's calling it a vintage, because vintage means that it's from start to finish, years long of a process, from the way that they plant to the way that they grow to the way that they harvest and do all of it. And then it finally, reaches the beautiful bottle with a bespoke label. And it's just, that's what I think of when I think of vintage. But we all know what Megsy's doing. She's just white labeling. That's what all the reports are saying. She's white labeling this stuff. So for her to call it a vintage is pretty laughable. But she's got this video on her Instagram, you guys, where again, she's showing us that she's Susie Homemaker in her garden on her multi-million-dollar estate, and she's carrying around bottles of wine. And that's what she's been doing for the last few weeks or so, is just showing us pictures of her wine glass in various summer locations to show us that this drink is the drink of the summer, that you got to get your hot little hands on this drink. And if you don't have your hot hands on this drink, then you're just not experiencing summer the way that Meghan wants you to experience the summer. Okay, so she's by a pool, she's on a beach, she's pouring her wine in a glass on the beach. When the heck did they allow glass on beaches? I mean, any beach I've ever been to, and I grew up in Southern California, any beach I'd ever been to, glass was not permitted on beaches. So I don't know what the heck she thinks she's doing here with this glass on the beach, but I digress. But yeah, and then in the latest one, she's carrying a basket, filled with bottles of her rosé, and she's got her feet dangling over a garden wall. I'm just going to say, what's with the dangling feet? She has an obsession with her feet and her legs, if you'll notice. That's the point I'm trying to get here. She's always showing us her legs and she's always showing us her feet. And she has very, very, very thin legs, to the point where I feel like she looks a little bit malnourished to me. She just seems very proud of them. And she's dangling her feet. And what I was thinking when I was looking at this was, she looks like a little kid in like Buster Brown sandals, just dangling her feet over a garden wall. I guess it's supposed to be whimsical. It's supposed to be just this bit of magic. And, you've got her rosé and you're in the garden and you're dangling your feet over a wall. And it's just so boring, you guys. This is just so unbelievably boring. And the press surrounding this woman and her husband over the last few weeks has not been kind. Ever since that story released about how Harry's trying to come back into the fold with the royal family, and I talked about that in my last video, if you haven't watched it. But ever since they've put that out there, and I do believe that Harry at least put that out there because he wants to go back, make no mistake. I don't think she does because she's too scared to go back to the UK. She's a big fat coward and she knows that Britain doesn't like her. But I just really think that she's probably really, really manically grasping at straws right now. And a lot of her stuff has gotten more and more impersonal because I think when she's feeling good about herself, she'll make stories on her Instagram and stuff where she's right up there. Mind you, she's always got the camera angles like really weird and she's looking kind of crazy and creepy and off kilter and she can never fit herself in frame properly. But at least when she's feeling good about herself, she's talking to us about, Billie Eilish t-shirts, or talking to us about how her sprinkles are selling out, or how she changed her company's name to As Ever and all that. That's when I think she's on her manic highs feeling good. And when she's not feeling good about herself, she'll just choose to show us pictures of her just yucky colored orangey yellow rosé, which is supposed to be pink. She'll just show us pictures of that on a beach, or she'll show us her feet or her legs. And even the captions are just really impersonal and sound like they're written by an unpaid intern that she probably throws things at. For example, in this latest reel, the whole caption is "goodness in a glass right around the corner, ... And the one where the wine is going into the glass on the beach, it's, "Oh, how we love seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Rosé-colored glasses, perhaps even better. Our new vintage of As Ever beloved rosé is available next week. Stay tuned." Nothing could be more impersonal. Nothing could be more impersonal. And we know what's happening. We know that the As Ever brand, she hasn't restocked that website. You still can't get her crap spread or sauce. You still can't get her crepes. You still can't get anything on the website. So what kind of business is she building here, first off? But you can't get anything on the website still. The wine thing, it hasn't been reviewed very well. It has not been reviewed very well. I pulled up an article here about what some people have been saying about this vintage, and by all accounts, the people that are reviewing and tasting this wine, especially in the UK press, they are not into it. They are not into it. For example, in the Telegraph, there's a woman who is named Diane Gross, and I just love the last name, especially when we're talking about Meghan's wine, but Gross. And apparently she knows a thing or two about wine, and she's describing it. This is her quote: "The wine isn't sweet at all. It's just sort of that top note of tutti frutti. It's a little bit like you're chewing gum, but that's not a bad thing at all. It happens a lot in rosé." But she also described it as being a little hot, meaning that the taste of alcohol is a little overwhelming. And in a blind taste test, her wine, meaning Meghan's wine, was her least favorite. And she says it has a salty, sweet finish that you sometimes get with rosé, but when asked if she would take it to a dinner party, she says a resounding no, she would not. And that's just one of many that I have read about. And $30 a bottle for that. And remember, you can't buy one. You got to buy either 3, 6, or 9. So this is where we're at. I don't think that Meghan's having that good of a time over in Montecito right now. And I don't think for one hot minute that she's drinking her own rosé. Let's put it that way. I'm sure she's got a bunch of other stuff that she's glugging down, but it ain't her stuff. She's just trying to get through her inventory of her white labeled rosé as quick as she can, because she's just got to move this crap. She's got to move it so that she can move on to the next thing. And the next thing, who knows? Who knows with this woman? But with Harry going off the grid in Botswana and him allowing that story to get out, that tells you everything you need to know about what's going on with these two. I really think he's fed up. He's had it with her, and she's just scrambling to move through the inventory. And especially after Netflix just really doesn't seem like they want anything to do with her. She can talk about how she's in renegotiations with them until the cows come home. But I really think that putting her on kind of like a first look deal, which is what it sounds like Netflix is doing, I think they're doing that because they know that when these two inevitably separate and sadly, I think divorce. And when I say sadly divorce, I say sadly because it's never good when anybody divorces. The only situation I can think of where when two people are divorcing and it's a good thing is when there's real physical abuse involved. Mental and emotional, yeah, kind of depending. But as a whole, people that just don't really seem to get along and they don't really mind breaking up a family and they're like nonchalant about it, that's never a good thing. But I digress. When this inevitable divorce does happen, she's going to do something in the way of a documentary or a book, and Netflix wants to be there when that happens. And they know that people are going to hate watch or hate read whatever she does, probably hate watch, and it'll probably be a watch thing because, Netflix is a streaming service and they're going to want their pound of flesh. They're going to want something with Meghan, where it's probably going to be, Meghan's new chapter, or they're gonna paint it as if poor little Meghan and her new chapter and everything that she had to go through to come out the other side. That's what I think. Yeah, she's just showing us her sandals and her ankles and her legs, and we're all supposed to get excited about it and get excited about her rosé. And yeah, it's not really anything to get excited about. That's why I'm already bored about talking about it, and I want to move on to the next thing. Time to take another drink of my German water. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. It's so refreshing. It makes you want to say yeah after you drink it. And it says mama on here because right now in Germany, we're in our temporary house and I don't have my Berkey water filter yet because our air shipment and sea shipment haven't arrived yet. So all we're doing is walking down to the local store and buying cases of this Ya water. And of course, as it is, when you've got 5 people in a house, especially 2 12-year-olds who open up a bottle of water, drink it, and then leave it on a counter or on a table or a desk or something. And then when they want another drink, rather than drinking from said water that they just opened, they'll go and get another unopened water from the case and open that and drink it. So I swear our house looks like the set of that movie. You remember that movie Signs, when that little girl would just have all these water glasses all over? That's how our house is like, but just with a bunch of super extra large bottles of Ya. We've been taking to writing our names on the labels. And this is Mama's Ya. Ya? This is Mama's Ya. Do not drink from Mama's Ya. And my son wouldn't drink from my Ya anyway because he's really grossed out by lipstick or lip gloss on glasses and stuff. It's really funny how my son is so particular. The aversion that my son has to drinking out of someone's glass or eating off of someone's fork and all that. I get it. Some people are grossed out by it and that's fine. I usually am too. But if we're out and about walking and there's only 1 or 2 bottles of water and I take a swig and I know he's thirsty and, we're all thirsty, I hand it to him. I say, son, would you like some? He always gives me this look as if I just handed him the most disgusting, moldy cheese or something. He's like, no, Mom, I'm fine. I'm laughing. I was like, where do you think you came from? Okay. You were in Mommy's belly for a really long time. Why do I gross you out? But apparently I do. So that is why, in addition to saving my sanity on all these unopened bottles while we're writing our names. So this is Mama's Anyway, that was a really long and disturbing story. I want to talk about next is something that is lighthearted and very sweet, because I think we need something lighthearted and sweet in the river of all this disgusting sewage that we've been talking about. I want to talk about Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson for a second. How stinking cute are these two? I came across a video and it's from People Magazine YouTube channel. Not that I would really watch or read anything really associated with that rag, because we all know that they're Harry and Meghan's lapdogs, but they had a video with Pam interviewing Liam and Liam interviewing Pam. And if you don't know, Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson are starring in the reboot of the Naked Gun movie that was just released about a week or two ago. And it's based on the old school Naked Gun franchise. And they met on the set, apparently really hit it off, and now are a romantic item in real life. This rapport that these two have with each other, again, so cute, so unbelievably sweet. You can tell that later in life they have found someone that makes their heart skip a beat. And Liam Neeson famously lost his wife, Natasha Richardson, in a tragic skiing accident a little over 15 years ago, I believe. He has two children, he had two children with her, and never remarried and never really got serious with anybody since that tragic incident. Pam, as we all know, Pam has a little bit of a saucy background. We all know Pammy does. She was on the cover of Playboy magazine, I want to say over 10 times, 12, 14, some crazy thing like that. We all know about the little saucy video that was leaked with her and her then husband, Tommy Lee, that sex tape. And she was devastated by all accounts, and rightly so. That was, I guess, their honeymoon, and it was a very private thing that was stolen from them when their house was broken into. But she seems to be doing really, really well for herself now. We all know she had that wonderful television show on Canadian television about hosting and homemaking and cooking. She's a very famous vegetarian, or is she vegan? She's one of the two. And her sons were in that show with her. And you remember around the time that Meghan's With Love Meghan show debuted on Netflix, a lot of us were talking about, myself included, about how it seems like she had basically stolen the entire concept of Pam's show. It was crazy. You look at the aesthetics, you look at all of the stills from the different, shots from each of the different shows next to each other. And everyone was like, dude, Meghan totally copped on Pammy's idea here. So people were rightly so kind of like, what the H is going on here? But anyway, so Pammy's cute. She is, by all accounts, seems to be a wonderful mother and has a wonderful relationship with her two grown sons. Pamela was married 5 times to 4 different men. She obviously was with Tommy Lee. She married Rick Solomon, the guy that was involved in the Paris Hilton tape. He's kind of sketchy, but she married him twice, and then she had another husband as well, I believe. But anyway, I'll put their names on here. I don't even know. Point being, she is one of those where you can tell she really loves the idea of being married and finding and searching for a soulmate. Whatever she has done in her life, wherever she has made her mistakes, by all accounts, it really seems like she's happy and adjusted now, which I really, really like to see. But seeing these two talk to each other, you can see there's genuine affection. It's so just real. And you can really, the affection that these two have for each other is palpable, but there is a sweetness to it and almost an innocent like feeling where you can tell that she is so in her femininity around Liam, and he is just so taken on this masculine role of a caregiver where Pam is concerned. That's the vibe I'm getting, and it's so cute and beautiful to see, and it really seems like he takes care of her. And maybe I'm just completely off the mark here, but I don't know that I am. I'm a pretty good reader of people, and these two are obviously really, really enamored of one another. And I am actually rooting for a Pam and Liam marriage. That would be so wonderful if these two got married and Liam gave himself a second chance at love and marriage, and Pam hopefully can find someone who can really make her happy. I loved seeing that. And then they talk about the relationships that they have with their kids. And what I've been reading online is that Liam even said that he didn't really get close to a woman after his wife tragically passed in that accident. He didn't really get close to a woman because oftentimes he really felt like the women that were getting close to him didn't really care or want to know a lot about his sons, and they're a big part of his life. And he really felt like until someone saw him and his sons as being kind of like a package deal, that he didn't really want to go there. And he really felt that since Pam herself has grown adult sons now, that she understood that and she could really get where he was coming from in that sense. But she really wanted to open up and find out about his sons as well and how important they were to him so that they could also be important to her. So I thought that was quite endearing. So yeah, you watch something like the Call Her Daddy podcast that just celebrates the baser instincts of relationships, and then to see something just sweet and very endearing and just a simple exchange between two people that really seem to like each other and have come in this mature stage of their lives together and just really like each other and just giggle and be sweet in each other's presence. And it doesn't have to be all about raunchiness and being in your face and telling us every intimate detail about what's going on in their relationship. It's nice to see. So I wish Liam and Miss Pam all of the love and luck in the world. Again, how awesome would that be to have Pam and Liam get married and ride off into the sunset together? I love it. Okay, so the next and last thing I want to talk about is Pedro Pascal. He's been in the news a lot lately for being very handsy with his co-stars. Apparently this is something that's been going on for a very long time, but it's kind of reached a little bit of a feverish pitch lately because he's been doing the press tour for his latest movie, The Fantastic Four or whatever, and he's got this co-star. Hold please. I don't know these people. I do not know who they are. I don't know anything about them. I don't even really know anything about Pedro himself. I haven't really watched anything this man has been in. The only thing I know him for is that television show Narcos that he did about 10 years ago. And the reason why I know is because my husband really liked that show and he watched it and he was always trying to get me to watch it. I think that show came on in like 2015 and ran for about 3 or 4 years. And I remember at the time my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And then the year later I had my cancer deal going on. And I remember that show just being violent, and that show was about Pablo Escobar and Mexico and the cartels and all this craziness. And I remember him telling me that it was a really good show and the acting was good, but it was unbelievably violent. And I think just back then I was thinking, I don't want anything to do with it. I can't watch something like that. I'm not in a good headspace. And I've actually just continued like that. I just don't watch a lot of stuff that's violent. I don't watch a lot of stuff that's like that. I mean, I get rattled enough just reading and watching the stuff that I talk to you guys about. that sometimes I have to take a mental health day from. So to watch a super, super violent movie or TV series or what have you about drugs and all that craziness, I'm not into it. But I know he's from that. But this latest movie that he's in, he's been very handsy apparently with this gal named Vanessa Kirby. And she's pregnant, by the way. And he does all this creepy stuff, like touch her belly constantly. She touches his neck. They're constantly hand holding during this whole press tour. They're kissing each other. But and I'll show you guys a video when he greets her on the red carpet. She's wearing this blue dress and he's very handsy with her belly and he's kissing her, and the kiss seems to be lingering a little bit. It's weird, it's creepy, it's inappropriate, and I don't care if I sound like an old lady. It is inappropriate. It's inappropriate because I cannot believe that her husband would watch how handsy these two are on this press junket and be happy with it. I'm sorry. He could say that he is an evolved male and doesn't care about it. Trust me, he cares about it. That's just is how it is. Whenever you get a weird feeling about something in the culture and you don't really know why, I'll tell you why. It's because we know in our heart of hearts, in our minds and our souls, that the behavior is wrong. It's probably wrong. So when we see a lot of this craziness going on, that's why. The reason why he's kind of creeping people out is just because he is too handsy. And what I don't understand is when all the Me Too's and the feminist people, how they're so easily offended by everything and they think that everything is line crossing and boundary crossing. Just look at Blake Lively and how she can be as gross in her text messages as she wants to be when she's talking to Justin, or she can be as handsy or raunchy in her humor, but yet she's going to go accuse Justin of the things that she's accused him of. It just seems weird to me. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, in this culture of Me Too, wouldn't you want to keep your hands to yourself? Wouldn't you want to hang back and be respectful of somebody, especially a woman? I don't get it. I do not get it. But what I wanted to show you guys, in addition to him being just that video I showed you of him being handsy on the red carpet, is there's this article on cosmopolitan.com. Cosmopolitan seems to think and is taking the stance that people are giving him crap about how handsy he's being because of his political views and because he's been vocal in his support of his transgender sister who goes by the name Lux now. And I'm going to read to you a little bit of what I read in this article. One of the things that struck me is the article talks about Lux being raised in Chile. And it says, although Lux was born in California, where Pedro moved at the age of 11, her parents relocated to their native Chile when she was 3 years old, taking Lux and her brother Nicholas with them. Pedro, who is 17 years older than Lux, remained in the States with their older sister Javiera, but he often returned to Chile for visits. And according to him, Lux called the shots in the house, despite being the youngest. He says, quote, she ruled the household right away, he said of Lux during an April 2023 interview with Esquire. When my older sister and I would visit, we were like intruders. Our mother was her mother. But for us to think that we were entitled to this woman's attention in any way was absurd. And what? Why would you, as the youngest sibling, be allowed to be in a position where you were making your older siblings feel like they couldn't have time or attention from your mother? She was all of their mother. So politics and transgender issues and all that stuff aside, how does that read to you? What type of person would say my mom is my mom and you can't have her, you have no rights or dibs on our mother to their older siblings? So that right there was just really weird. But this article is celebrating this Lux person and saying she's an actor, she's a model, and she's a transgender activist, and she came out as a trans woman, and she previously identified as non-binary, and now she's a woman. Apparently was in Narco, the television series that I was telling you guys about earlier, when she was a man earlier. According to this article, the reason why is because not only are people just mean, evil, rotten haters, but they're being critical of his style because he's been very vocal in his support of the transgender issue. And apparently Pedro has really bad social anxiety as well. He's talked about this in interviews and articles where he gets so unbelievably frightened and anxious about being in public sometimes that he needs to hold on to and get the support of co-stars when he's being interviewed or when he's out in the public eye on these press junkets. Might want to rethink your career, but anyway. So in this article, it starts out by saying, when I first heard there was backlash against Pedro Pascal, I was terrified. Surely only some disastrous scandal could have prompted any outrage against everyone's current holiday crush. Oh, how wrong I was. It turns out the Pedro Pascal backlash isn't due to any offensive joke or impropriety. Well, it might be improper to many that you are pawing at a pregnant woman who is not your wife in front of hundreds of people and photographers on a red carpet, but that doesn't matter. I digress. So it's not due to any offensive joke or impropriety. It's because ... he has anxiety and supports LGBTQ rights. Confused? Allow me to explain. And it just goes on that it's just saying that, it's unwarranted hate. And he talks about how he fell into the patterns really, really hit him during 2020. And when we were all in lockdown, and he would doom scroll and he would get anxiety over it. And the only way he felt that he could cope with this crippling anxiety is to rely on the closeness and support of his relationships, his family, his friends, and so on and so forth. If I was an actress on the red carpet and he was touching me and pawing at me the way that he's doing to some of these women, especially this latest co-star of his, what's her name? Victoria? I don't even, whatever. My husband wouldn't like it. And rightly so. Because it's weird. And they're basically calling this article is basically calling anyone that shares my view, you're just automatically labeled a troll. You're a hater. You hate anyone in the LGBTQ movement. You hate anyone that says they have anxiety and this and that. And this, it's just a bunch of nonsense. What do you think all the voices in the media and on social media would say if Vanessa Kirby was single, mind you? She could still be pregnant because people nowadays think that, just get pregnant and you're not married, it doesn't matter anyway. So irregardless of her being pregnant, what would people say if this Vanessa gal was single and he was touching on her belly and kissing her and holding her hands and she was rubbing his neck and she was returning this and doing all of this? What would people be saying about it? They would be saying, oh my gosh, it's a blooming, blossoming romance. Aren't they cute together? That's what would be the rumors, right? That's what everybody would say. And they would be talking about what a cute couple they make. And are you a couple? And everyone would be writing articles about it and whispering about it and all this stuff. So that proves my point right there. So that's what makes it creepy. That's what makes it inappropriate. That's what makes old fuddy-duddies like me. And you don't even have to be old. You can just be of sound mind and be called a fuddy-duddy by people when you look at this and say, this looks weird. This looks like they are in a relationship and a very intimate one. So that's why people think it's creepy. If she was single, they would all be talking about what a cute couple they would make and are they a couple? So yeah. That's all I got to say about this whole Pedro Pascal stuff. I personally think he's an attractive man. I've heard he's a very, very good actor. Maybe he really does have social anxiety. Maybe he really does. And who am I to say that he doesn't? He probably does. I mean, I would not want his job. I would not want to be out there in the public eye on red carpets and have people take my picture from every angle on a wide angle lens and, rip me apart for this and that and this and that. We're not ripping him apart as a human being. You know, he's a child of God, just like I am, just like you are. But what people are talking about is that it is kind of gross and he is kind of handsy with a lot of people and it does look inappropriate. And especially in this day and age of Me Too, just hands off, bro. Hands off. Get yourself a cute little wiener dog or something. Get yourself a little wiener dog, a little support animal that you can carry on the red carpet with you and like stroke it, okay? Just be like Dr. Evil with Mr. Bigglesworth and get yourself a little, I mean, what is this? I don't know what I'm doing. Just be like Dr. Evil. Get yourself a little Mr. Bigglesworth that you can cuddle with and you know, stroke it behind the ear and kissy with your little animal. Do that. That would actually be a great publicity stunt if this dude showed up with a cute little kitty or a cute little wiener dog or a little puppy or something and he would just be kissy it and, you know, just do that. I mean, the weird, crazy culture of today probably wouldn't even bat an eyelash. He would probably call attention to all these animal groups that would say that he was just a hero for saying that it's okay to go into a public place and have your therapy animal with you or something. I don't know. It's just like, get with it, dude. Like, and he's 50 years old, I think. I looked up his age. He's 50 years old. He's my age, you guys. He's my age. He knows better. He's a Gen Xer, for God's sake. He knows better. Just, you know, with everything that's going on with people who, in my humble opinion, are falsely accused, like Justin Baldoni, why would you even want to set yourself up to have film and footage of you being all handsy with these people? Just protect yourself. Pedro, be smart. Don't do this kind of stuff. By all accounts, I don't think there's ever been anything talking about him being inappropriate with co-stars. I hope not, but why wouldn't you want to protect yourself? Just keep your hands to yourself. Get a jacket that's got really deep pockets and just, you know, have like a rabbit's foot in there or like one of those little stress balls. I don't know. So this is all I have for you guys right now. I hope that you enjoyed the little Pam and Liam segment. I really did. I thought it was so sweet and it was such a nice little refreshing, it's like jaw. It's just, here's to Pam and Liam. I hope they get married. I hope they get married and show the youngins of today that you can be classy and you can have a sweet relationship and get married and commit. And, you know, here's to Liam and Pam. In a world of call your daddies and Pedro Pascals and creepy Meghans dangling their crazy feet over a garden wall and trying to tell us that this peach-colored voodoo shoodoo thing she's trying to sell is rosé. It's not rosé, okay? It's peach. But anywho, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me today. Sorry if I was a little bit all over the place today, but again, there was just so much to talk about. I kind of was just, what do I talk about with them? Because it's just a lot. It is a lot, but that's why I'm here for you. Thank you for being here for me. If you haven't liked this video already, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love to have you. Love to have you. A little more than half of everyone that watches my videos are not subscribed. It is free. Costs nothing to hit that subscribe button. I love spending this time with you. God bless, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye. Woohoo!